RPM Tuning is a street-styled arcade racing game that was released for the PlayStation 2 in 2004 and would later be released on the Xbox in 2005 and also on the Windows PC in 2005. But the game would be rebranded as Top Gear RPM Tuning in other regions, and on the PC it would be rebranded again as Midnight Outlaw 6 hours to sun up, which is kind of a weird concept when you think about it. It doesn't make an awful lot of sense. But that's just the way games were back then. They just had really weird names when they were rebranding them for different platforms, formats or regions. And the game itself would be developed by a French studio known as Babylon Software and will be published by Wanadu, again for all regions, specifically with the PlayStation 2. Now the game itself is kind of like a street race, so that would be in the same frame as the Need for Speed Underground series and would be more like a direct clone to those type of games. Now the games themselves didn't receive the greatest of reviews across the board. A lot of people slating it due to various handling dynamics, physics, the graphics, and the problem is that the game was solely compared to more notably Underground 2, which is considered to be one of the best, if not the best, street racing game of all time on any console. So this game did have a lot to live up to, but again this game had a lot more budget styled elements to it. So you have access to a multitude of different cars, and the game does have its own story, plot or arc, where you pick a car from the start and then you have to win races in order to upgrade your car, and then you can eventually purchase other cars, and you have to keep racing until you become the best racer of the streets. And you also have access to different modes from multiplayer and even quick race modes and time trials, and presents a number of different challenges as you play, as it's not just about racing. You have to complete other specific challenges as you progress through your career in order again to unlock different features, unlock more cars and to further progress the story. So you can at any time, like the Need for Speed Underground series, you can go back to your garage once you've earned money from winning races, and you can exchange that money then to buy additional parts for your cars, even upgrade them, upgrade the power outputs, add new wheels, new body kits, change the colour and paint styles of your cars. Any of the customized options that you would have seen in the likes of the Need for Speed games, you can do pretty much in this as well. Now the game itself presents a good challenge, and it is a good round solid game in my own opinion, because I owned this back in the day. Now back then the game wouldn't have been seen to be a good game, or it wouldn't have been considered as a good game, and therefore when the game was being sold, it wouldn't have been sold at the highest price when you compare it to the likes of Need for Speed Underground or even Most Wanted that came after that. This game would have been more on the mid-level or lower end of the pricing budget, and I remember I got this game for about €20 back then, and I remember seeing it on the store shelf, and straight away I was drawn to it because again I was a big fan of Need for Speed Underground 2 and I absolutely loved that. So for me at the time I was looking for any alternatives that were possible or even that you could get out there. So I happened to stumble across this game and I just took a gamble on it to see what it was like. Now it is apparent from the start it's no Need for Speed, and it's straight away apparent from the likes of the visuals, the gameplay style, even the handling physics, but it's not generally a bad game. Like when you look at even the reviews, like it's never going to be a Need for Speed beater, that's a given. But what it does do quite well. It's not as well polished and the handling physics probably aren't as good, but it's one of those games that again it's open world and does offer a lot of playability and has some nice features, although while not as well fleshed out compared to more mainstream games. But it does present a good challenge, and it is a good solid racer that definitely will keep you playing for some time. Plus it has enough playable features and cars and elements to unlock in the game and different areas to explore that it will keep you playing for quite a while. It is a good solid all round experience regardless of the reviews that it got. Again, it is considered more of a lower end, even more times sometimes budget entry style of game, and even on the PC version, especially over the years, because people would struggle to play it, especially with newer versions of PC hardware, that the game wouldn't play on more modern systems, which is the case with a lot of older PC games. That's always going to be an issue. But if you can get access to this game, say on the PS2 or even on the Xbox when it was released, and if you are a fan of Need for Speed Underground or even of the more relevant Need for Speed games that were being released at that time, this would be a solid alternative to that if you're looking for something a little bit different or something that's in within those lines of those type of games. It definitely presents a challenge, it has enough unique appeal, and it genuinely is a fun game to play. It will test you, it will challenge you, just like the Need for Speed games, but it does present something that, while at the same time not being considered as good, but it will present something that's as close to it as you could possibly get really for the time in all respects to it. As again, these games were always been going to be compared to the more heavy hitters, so they were never going to match up in terms of what they represented or what they offered, but I don't think they were ever really meant to be like that. They were inspired by those games, but they were never going to beat them anyway, like we all know that. But it still doesn't take away from the game, and it still shouldn't put you off wanting to play it. Now, from my own experience when I bought it, I put a lot of time into this myself, and in fairness now, it is tricky to get used to at first, but when you get used to the various handling physics and dynamics, because again all the cars handle differently, but when you upgrade the cars it changes the handling feel of the cars, and you will get used to it. And for me it is a decent game to play, although mind you the computer AI at times can be very very poor and sluggish, and sometimes they can be downright annoying because they have a tendency to get in your way more than anything else. But that's just the reality of these type of games. They're never going to be as well put together compared to other games, but in terms of its racing potential, it's a decent racer, and I enjoyed it for what it was back in the day. And I do remember actually playing through the entirety of the campaign, unlocking a load of cars and finishing the game in its entirety, and I personally enjoyed the game. I enjoyed the experience that I had with it, again because I enjoyed Need for Speed Underground 2, I enjoyed the likes of Need for Speed Most Wanted and most of the Need for Speed games back then, so for me to play anything that was even resembled to those type of games for me was always a plus. And while it's not considered as good as those games, which it isn't, it's still a good decent experience that is worthwhile trying out in all honesty. So I would recommend it just for that experience alone if you do like street racing games. It's another one that you can add to your list. And I would love to know your thoughts of RPM tuning for the PS2 if you have played this game back in the day yourself, and if so, what do you think of the experience overall? Did you enjoy it, or maybe not so much, or would you prefer even the Need for Speed games to it, which probably most of us will? But I'd love to hear your take on this game if you have enjoyed it back in the day yourself, and if so, what do you generally think of it overall? So be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to be updated of future videos. And again, if you would like to see more content around other types of street racing games similar to this, and even the Need for Speed Underground series that was also released on the PS2, you can check out this playlist here on screen to see more of those games in action. And I will see you all in the next one.